Shireen, we'll come back to you with that, but right now we have some more breaking news coming in. This is a very crucial piece of information wherein Prime Minister Narendra Modi now responds to Pannun, Pannun, the assassination claims. And Narendra Modi has for the first time responded to allegations of an Indian assassination plot in the US, saying he will look into any evidence, but a few incidents would not derail the US-India ties. In an interview with the Financial Times, India's Prime Minister sought to play down the diplomatic impact of a US indictment last month that claimed an Indian official directed the attempted murder of a Sikh separatist on the American soil. This is the piece of information that we're getting. Remember, this is very crucial information that's coming in because Prime Minister Narendra Modi has finally reacted to the Pannun assassination plot that had come to the picture and that had been brought to the notice of the Indian government by the US authorities itself. Right now we have Abhishek Jha joining us on the broadcast to bring us more details into this. Abhishek, this is quite a crucial statement coming in, and I think the Prime Minister is reiterating what the US officials had also been saying, the Secretary of State as well as their spokesperson, that this particular plot will not derail US-India relations in any manner. Probe is taking place, and right now the Prime Minister has also said the same thing, that he will look into the matter for sure.
Well, we know that India-US ties are so deep and so well trusted that it cannot be derailed by such smaller incidences, though they are concerning because India has in the past also, External Affairs Ministry, its spokesperson has commented that these issues are concerning. They have already formed a committee that is looking into it. US's side has also shared intelligence inputs regarding their allegation that Indian nationals were involved in plotting to kill Gurpatwant Singh Pannun, who has been a Khalistani terrorist in the eyes of Indian agencies and who is well known for his anti-India tirade, anti-India propaganda from the US and Canadian soil. Prime Minister Modi, in his interview, has also underlined that if a citizen of ours has done anything good or bad, we are ready to look into it. Our commitment is to the rule of law. So the entire conspiracy, entire allegations against India by certain section of media, especially in US and Canada, that India has been going ahead with transnational killing, falls flat with Prime Minister saying that he respects rule of law, and if there has been some incidents where Indian nationals have been involved, and if evidences, if the facts are given to the Indian side, then they will surely look into it and probably take legal course also.
Right, Abhishek. So basically this remark, or rather the reaction that's coming from the Prime Minister with regards to this, is a reinforcement of sorts of the US-India relation. But at the same time, it also speaks about the fact that India is not just going to go by the word of the US authorities, but will also look into it themselves, look at the probe themselves.
Well, to great extent, you are right, because there has been in fact two incidences where Indian agencies' role or Indian nationals' role have been under scanner. First has been the killing of Hardeep Singh Nijjar in Canada in the month of June, I think, where Canadian Prime Minister did allege in the floor of Parliament, Canadian Parliament, that there has been allegations that Indian agencies, people were involved in killing of Hardeep Singh Nijjar. Since then, it has been only rhetorical, and there has not been substantial, piece of evidence that Canada may have provided to the Indian side, and this is Indian side's complaint that though the serious allegations were put in by the Prime Minister himself, Justin Trudeau, but so far Canadian side are shying away from sharing any hard evidences. On the side of USA, if they have had any concern, they have gone ahead with the legal process in USA. There is an indictment process that has detailed out the role of alleged Indian national in the entire conspiracy, and then they have shared it their inputs with the Indian agencies also, which is now being probed by the Indian side also. So there's a difference how Canadian authorities are dealing with the same kind of allegation and the US allegations, being taken forward by the US agencies. And this is where the deep trusted strategic relationship plays out, because India and USA probably share more trust and more strategic interests. And these incidences are of just a smaller irritants, and they are not going to derail the entire, decades-long partnership that the two countries share.
Right, Abhishek. Abhishek, thank you for sharing all those details. Right now, we also have Siddhant Mishra joining us on the broadcast to bring us more details with regards to this. Siddhant, coming to you, very good morning. Well, this particular statement that's come in from the Prime Minister, it's been said that he sought to play down the diplomatic impact of a US indictment last month. But it also comes in as a very strong statement saying that he has taken into account what's been going on, but this is also not going to impact the US-India relations. Because given what had happened between India and Canada, this is quite important, a statement that's come in to not make sure that the relations don't go sour.
Well, that's right. And in fact, Prime Minister Modi, for the first time speaking to Financial Times, perhaps the newspaper, which has been extensively reporting about the indictment in the U.S. court and also, the diplomatic standoff which is going on between India and Canada. Prime Minister Modi chose to speak to Financial Times, and perhaps it's the first time that he has reacted to this entire story, which has been going on maybe from last few months. It started with Mr. Trudeau, opening up a diplomatic standoff with India, followed by lot of developments at diplomatic level, and then the story which was published by Financial Times, perhaps saying that the Indian is involved in a plot.
Right, Siddhant, I'm very sorry, I'll have to interrupt you there, because right now we also have CNN News 18's Anand Narasimhan joining us on the broadcast to bring us more insights into this particular story. Anand, a very good morning to you. Well, getting right into what has taken place, Prime Minister Narendra Modi now making a comment with with regards to India's strategic relation with the US as well as Pannun's assassination. How are we looking at this?
Well, more importantly, I think Prime Minister Narendra Modi has very clearly said that if there is any evidence that is provided with any citizen, Indian citizen being involved in anything good or bad, the agencies will look into it and the investigation will be done, because there will always be upholding of the rule of law. But more importantly, Prime Minister Narendra Modi has also underlined that these one or two incidents or stray incidents are not going to derail the strengthening Indo-US partnership, which is underlined in shared democratic values and also growing interdependence. And more importantly, cooperation at all levels, including security and counter-terrorism. Prime Minister Narendra Modi has actually said, and I quote, that deeply concerned about the activities of certain extremist groups based overseas. These elements, under the guise of freedom of expression, have engaged in intimidation and incited violence. Now, this is a huge question. This is a huge point that's been made by the Prime Minister, where on the one hand we have very clearly said that if a citizen of ours has done anything good or bad, we are ready to look into it. Our commitment is to the rule of law. But on the other hand, they said that that these incidences which are happening on soil, especially US soil and Canadian soil, are deeply concerning, and this is against Indian interests. So clearly, Prime Minister Narendra Modi, on the one hand, underlining growing and strengthening Indo-US ties, has said that a few incidences are not going to derail this, but more importantly, highlighting that there are elements who are misusing freedom of expression to incite violence and also acts of secession, and these are against Indian interests. So this concern is also being raised. So somewhere the message is very, very clear that you provide us evidence, don't just make claims, provide us elements and evidence, and if you have evidence, we will act on it. And this is something which India has repeatedly told Canadian authorities and also the Americans, and I think it's been shared with them. And now coming out and saying that if you want us to act on evidence and credible evidence, then you must also not allow your soil to become a hotbed for secessionist activities against the interests of Bharat.
Anand, can you also tell us, you almost touched on this, you just touched on this right now in the second part of your response, but how should our audiences interpret the fact that the Prime Minister has responded to the American claims and not the Canadian claims? Is there a message there to Canadian leadership? How should our audiences read this?
No, I think it was because of the US indictment question that directed at the Prime Minister. With respect to Canada, the government has already responded via the MEA. Right. So our position, be it the US or Canada, remains the same, that you provide us evidence and we will look into it. Any citizen, good or bad actions, we are committed to the rule of law. This is something Bharat has very clearly said. On the other hand, they've said that like these will not derail a strengthening bilateral relationship which is bipartisan. And the other aspect is that the Prime Minister has said that we are also concerned about foreign soil being used by elements which are secessionist elements and which are using and misusing freedom of expression. So somewhere sending out a message that if you want us to look into any kind of indictment that you are making or allegations you are making, we are saying provide evidence. But here we have provided you evidence, and not just that, we have designated this individuals as terrorists and wanted people. They are on a wanted list. Their others had red corner notices against them. What are you doing if you are committed to fight terrorism and if you are committed to securing and respecting sovereignty of democratic nations?
But
So that is something which the Prime Minister has also given it back in equal measure.
okay, but Anand, could you also touch on, just if we can take a look at what the Prime Minister has said and not said in regards to what's happened with Canada in the last few months. Now the Prime Minister making this very clear statement that is very clearly referring to the United States and the fact that the United States had said that they've shared evidence. Could we compare what the Prime Minister has said, what he has not said about Canada in the past to this?
Well, see, one of the aspects, and the Prime Minister has very clearly quoted that we need to accept the fact that we are living in an era of multilateralism. The world is interconnected, as well as compels us to recognize absolute agreement on all matters cannot be a prerequisite for collaboration. So somewhere laying the ground, saying that one or two incidents cannot be held at, our nations can't be held at gunpoint, and this was vis-a-vis even equations with Russia. As far as Canada is concerned, well, clearly India has in the past told the Canadian authorities that you are batting for somebody who had a red corner notice and who was operating out of Canadian soil for the last 5-6 years, despite having a red corner notice since 2016. And this message has been sent back and credible evidence has been shared with respect to Hardeep Nijjar. But in the case of the assassination attempt on an American citizen on US soil, that's where the indictment came from the American authorities. India has turned around, and once again Prime Minister Narendra Modi underlining what the government stated position has been. Give us evidence. It's the same question, it's the same part that's been highlighted to the Canadians time and again, and it's 6 months down the line. Canadian authorities have said that the courts will take care, but the courts have not even been apprised of the matter because the charge sheet also has not yet been filed in the courts. So the reality is, in 6 months, for a statement for which you try to use one incident to even sour equations between two nations, and a country's Prime Minister stands in Parliament to make a statement. In 6 months, you have not been able to provide A, credible evidence, B, file a charge sheet, C, take the matter into court and get the courts to decide. So that is a reflection on the Canadians itself. As far as the Americans is concerned, very clearly they have said that the person that you have, if you have evidence that there is an Indian citizen involved, you please share the evidence and we will look into the matter. That is exactly what India's stated position has been on any matter. We will look into it. The same thing, there has to be reciprocation. We have provided credible evidence. We have designated certain individuals as terrorists and wanted people, and they are on the wanted list for their activities. What are nations like America doing about it after underlining a commitment on security cooperation and terrorism, anti-terrorism cooperation, and saying that sovereignty of nations must be respected? So that is why Prime Minister has very clearly said, if someone gives us any information, we will definitely look into it. But he's also underlined and he's gone ahead and said that we are deeply concerned about activities of certain extremist groups based overseas. These elements, under the guise of freedom of expression, have engaged in intimidation and incited violence. This is a very, very serious statement that has come from the Prime Minister, and I think in equal measure, the message would have been conveyed to the American and Canadian counterparts, saying that if you are wanting any other nation to walk the talk, then you also have to walk the walk. That is what is important.
Okay, so the Prime Minister for the first time responding to allegations of an Indian assassination plot in the United States, saying he will look into any evidence, but a few incidents will not derail US-India ties. Anand, thank you for bringing us context.